The dark philosophy of Machiavelli. Imagine a world where loyalty has an expiration date, where trust is fragile, where friendship can be strategic, and where power decides who survives and who disappears from history. This was the reality. Niccolo Machiavelli studied with unusual honesty. Born in Florence in 1469, during the Renaissance, Machiavelli entered a world that looked beautiful on the surface, but underneath was filled with instability, betrayal, and conflict. Italy was not a unified country at the time. It was divided into competing city-states, such as Florence, Venice, Milan, Naples, and the Papal States. These powers were constantly involved in wars, political conspiracies, shifting alliances, and struggles for dominance. Foreign powers like France, Spain, and the Holy Roman Empire repeatedly interfered in Italian affairs, making the political environment even more dangerous. This was not a peaceful intellectual world, where ideas existed separately from violence. Politics was survival, and Machiavelli learned this lesson early. He worked as a diplomat and government official for the Republic of Florence. This role allowed him to observe kings, generals, popes, rulers, mercenaries, and politicians up close. He did not study power from books alone. He studied it from real experience. He watched alliances collapse overnight. He watched leaders rise quickly and fall even faster. He witnessed betrayals hidden behind polite smiles and grand speeches. These experiences shaped his understanding of human behavior. Unlike philosophers who focused on how society should ideally function, Machiavelli focused on how it actually functions. He believed this difference was critical. According to him, many leaders fail because they confuse moral fantasy with political reality. They expect honesty in dishonest environments. They expect loyalty from self-interested people. They expect fairness in systems built around ambition. And when reality collides with idealism, they collapse. Machiavelli wanted to understand why. His most famous work, The Prince, became the ultimate expression of this philosophy. The Prince is often misunderstood as a celebration of evil or manipulation, but in many ways it is a brutally realistic manual about power preservation. Machiavelli was asking a practical question: how does a ruler maintain authority in a chaotic, unpredictable, and dangerous world? His answer was uncomfortable. A successful ruler cannot rely solely on morality. He must understand fear, deception, appearance, force, timing, and adaptability. One of Machiavelli's most famous principles is that it is safer to be feared than loved. If one cannot be both, this statement alone secured his controversial reputation. But his reasoning was deeply psychological. Love depends on emotional attachment and voluntary loyalty. People love when it serves their interests, when circumstances are favorable, when they are comfortable. But when pressure increases, scarcity appears, or risk becomes personal, love weakens. Fear operates differently. Fear introduces consequences. It creates boundaries. A person may betray affection, but will hesitate when punishment is attached to disobedience. Machiavelli was not saying rulers should be unnecessarily cruel. In fact, he argued that cruelty should be calculated, limited, and purposeful. Excessive cruelty creates hatred, which is dangerous. Controlled severity, however, can establish order and prevent greater instability. In his view, disorder was more destructive than strict governance. This idea reveals an important part of Machiavelli philosophy. He was less concerned with moral purity and more concerned with stability. For him, chaos destroys societies faster than hard decisions. Another shocking lesson from Machiavelli involves promises and honesty. He argued that rulers should not always keep their promises if circumstances change against their interests. At first glance, this appears openly immoral, but Machiavelli was again describing what he believed to be political reality. If other leaders are deceptive, manipulative, and opportunistic, then rigid honesty can become a weakness. A ruler who blindly follows promises while everyone else exploits flexibility risks losing everything. This does not mean constant lying is wise. It means strategic pragmatism matters. Machiavelli believed leaders must know when principles help them and when rigid adherence becomes self-destructive. He famously wrote that a ruler should know how to act as both a lion and a fox. This metaphor remains one of his most powerful insights. The lion symbolizes force, courage, strength, and intimidation. The fox symbolizes intelligence, cunning, awareness, and strategic deception. A lion can scare away wolves, but may fall into traps. A fox can recognize traps, but cannot scare predators. A wise ruler combines both qualities. Strength without intelligence is reckless. Intelligence without strength is vulnerable. Power requires balance. Machiavelli also emphasized the extraordinary importance of public image. He argued that appearing virtuous can be more politically valuable than genuinely being virtuous. This is perhaps one of his most modern observations. People judge primarily through appearances. They see behavior, symbols, rituals, language, clothing, reputation, and public gestures. Few examine deeper motives. Therefore, a ruler should appear compassionate, disciplined, trustworthy, religious, and just, even while privately making ruthless strategic decisions when necessary. This principle feels incredibly relevant in the modern age. Today, politicians, corporations, influencers, celebrities, and public figures all carefully manage image, brand identity, public relations, media narratives, and curated personas dominate perception. A person or institution can maintain support, not because reality is admirable, but because appearance is convincing. Machiavelli understood centuries ago that perception itself is power. Control what people believe, and you influence behavior. This insight makes his philosophy disturbingly timeless. Another core element of Machiavelli thought is adaptability. He believed fortune influences human affairs, but does not completely control them. Life is unstable. Opportunities emerge unexpectedly. Crises arrive without warning. Political climates shift rapidly. Public opinion changes. Allies become rivals. Old strategies stop working. Under these conditions, rigid thinking becomes dangerous. Machiavelli admired leaders who could read changing circumstances and adjust accordingly. He believed successful individuals understand timing. They know when to be bold and when to remain cautious, when to negotiate and when to confront, when to display mercy and when to demonstrate authority. This flexibility is essential for survival. To Machiavelli, leadership was not static morality. It was dynamic judgment under pressure. This perspective also shaped his views on military power. He deeply distrusted mercenaries. Mercenary armies fight for money, not loyalty. Their commitment disappears when payment stops or risk increases. Machiavelli believed rulers should rely on their own military strength and citizen armies whenever possible. Dependence creates vulnerability. Self-reliance creates security. This idea extends beyond war. At a deeper level, Machiavelli believed dependence on unstable external forces weakens authority. Whether in politics, leadership, or personal strategy, autonomy matters. Many critics label Machiavelli cynical or immoral. The word itself has become associated with manipulation, cold calculation, and ruthless ambition. Yet this interpretation is incomplete. Machiavelli did not invent deception, greed, ambition, or betrayal. He observed them. He simply refused to hide behind comforting illusions. This honesty is what unsettles people. Most individuals prefer moral narratives, where good intentions naturally produce good outcomes. Machiavelli challenged this assumption. He suggested that reality often rewards competence over innocence, preparation over idealism, strategy over naive trust. This is difficult to accept because it forces confrontation with uncomfortable truths about human nature. Humans are capable of loyalty and betrayal, generosity and selfishness, courage and cowardice, compassion and cruelty. No political system, organization, or relationship exists outside these contradictions. Ignoring darker tendencies does not eliminate them. It merely leaves one unprepared. This is why Machiavelli remains relevant. Far beyond politics, his ideas are studied in business negotiation, military strategy, psychology, leadership, and organizational behavior. Executives study influence. Negotiators study leverage. Leaders study authority. Psychologists study behavioral incentives. Machiavelli. Insights continue, appearing in different forms. Because the underlying dynamics, power shapes decisions. Fear influences behavior. Scarcity intensifies conflict. Image shapes perception. Of power remain consistent. Incentives guide loyalty.